anytime I'm dividing a whole number by a decimal, the first thing I need to do is make sure that I have a whole number in my divisor. So how am I going to do that? Well, I have a little star there that says move the blank, or move the decimal point to the blank in the divisor to have a whole number. So we're going to move it to the right because I need to move that decimal over to the right in order to make the divisor a whole number. Then we're going to match this move in the dividend as well. Okay, so that's all we're going to do first. So I'm going to take my decimal, I'm going to move it to the right. How many times did I move it? Once. So I'm going to start a decimal here, and I'm going to move one time to the right in the dividend as well. This is where my decimal ends up. And what do you think I do with it in my quotient? Pop it to the top. Okay, what do you think I need to do in that little open space? Add a zero. Okay, now I'm just going to divide like normal. I don't have to worry about the decimal point anymore. It is where it is. I'm done with the decimal point. It doesn't move anymore. So I'm just going to divide like normal. So 3 divides into 4 one time. Multiply. 3 times 1 is 3. And subtract. Bring down. 3 divides into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. And subtract. I already have a decimal, so I don't need to add another decimal. I was noticing this mistake kind of quite often yesterday. I don't know if it was this class or my other class, but I noticed that people were trying to put 2 decimals in there. If I already have one, I don't need to add another one. I just need to add his best friend so that I can continue dividing. And so what's going to happen? Okay, it's going to keep on going. Now, for the remainder, just remember, you can always add a 0 after the decimal point, bring down and continue dividing. So that's just our reminder that we don't stop with the remainder. This quotient is an example of what kind of decimal that we talked about yesterday?
A repeating.
A repeating decimal. So when I write my final answer, it's going to look like this with a little bar over the 3. Okay, we're going to do one more together, and then you're going to do one on your own or with your group. We have 8 divided by 125 thousandths. So I'm going to write my 8 divided by 0.125. Now I have to move my decimal this time how many times to make that divisor a whole number? 3. 1, 2, 3. Which means I need to start after my 8 and move 1, 2, 3 places. This is where my decimal will be. And I'm going to pop it to the top. And fill in zeros here. Okay, now I can divide. So I'm dividing 125 into 8. It goes in 0 times. Now I can show my next step where I would multiply 125 times 0 is 0, subtract, bring down. But I don't need to do necessarily all of that. I can just keep bumping over. So if it can't go into 8, now I'm looking at 80. Can 125 divide into 80? No. Can it divide into 800? Yes, 6 times, which is 750. Then I subtract. That leaves me with 50. But I got to bring down. And it goes into 500 4 times, which is exactly 500. So do I need to keep doing anything else? Do I need to add a 0 to bring down? No, I'm just done. So my answer is 64. Okay, you guys are going to try the next one with your table if you want to, or on your own if you want to. We'll check it together in just about 60 seconds or so. All right, so you should have 36 as your quotient for that last problem on that notes page. To it real quick. Okay. So on that problem that you guys just did, you had to move your decimal 2 places. So that means I needed to add, after the 9, move my decimal 2 places there too and add in 2 zeros. And then I just divide 25 into 900 and I end up with 36. Okay, moving on to our next page of notes. Do I need to go? Okay, on this one, we are using the standard algorithm to divide a decimal by a decimal. Okay, it's very similar to what we just did. To start out, what we're going to do is we are going to move the decimal point in the divisor to the right as many places as needed to have a whole number. So like we just did, again, that decimal is in the divisor. So the first thing I have to do is make it into a whole number by moving that decimal to the right. Okay, on this one, we're going to do the one that has the steps next to it. So I have 75 hundredths divided by 5 tenths. I'm going to rewrite the problem so that I have it set up correctly. 75 hundredths divided by 5 tenths. Step 1 that we just talked about with the big star by it, what do I do first? Yes, move the decimal in the divisor to the right. How many times do I have to move it till it becomes a whole number? Only once. So I'm only going to move this decimal once and then pop it to the top. Now I'm just going to divide like normal. So after I move the decimal in the divisor to the right, I needed to match that same movement in the dividend. I've got my decimal popped to the top, and now I am just going to divide. So, 5 goes into 7 how many times? 1. 1 times 5 is 5. Subtract and bring down. 5 goes into 25 5 times. 5 times 5 is 25. Subtract. I have nothing to bring down, and I have nothing left over. So my answer is 1.5. Do y'all want to try the next one? Okay, try the next one and then we'll check it. So in this problem, to the right, end your conversations please in 3, 2, and 1. Thank you. Okay, so I moved my decimal 1 place to the right because 3 6/10 is not a whole number. Okay, it has a whole number with a decimal, but it's not just a whole number, so I got to move that 1 place, which means I need to move the decimal 1 place in my dividend as well. So I move it to the right, pop it to the top, now I divide. Now remember, I like to use compatible numbers or numbers that are easy, so I use some estimation to try to figure out how many times that divisor goes into my dividend. So I'm going to estimate 36 to about 40. And then I'm going to take 258 and round that to about 240 because I know that 40 goes into 240 evenly 6 times. So I'm going to try out 36 times 6 and just see what I get. It may not be enough, but at least it's a starting point. It's 216. So, do you think I could add in one more 36?
Maybe, yeah. No.
So we'll try 36 times 7, which is 252. So that works. So this should be a 7 up here.
7.
When I multiply 36 times 7, it's 252. And I have 6 left over. Now, I've got to continue my division steps. So I need to add my BFF. 0 to bring down. 36 goes into 60 only 1 time. 36 times 1 is 36. Subtract. It's 24. I add another 0 to bring down. and now I'm putting it into 240. Well, I've already tried 36 times 6 a minute ago, so I know that this has to be a 6 here. So if I subtract 216, I need to give myself some space. If I subtract 216, then I'm left with 24. Add another 0, and what's going to happen? It's going to be that 6 is going to continue repeating. So when I write my answer, what I'll write is 7 decimal point 1 6, but I only put a line over the 6 because that is the only digit that repeats. Okay, are there any questions?